Thursday, May 17, 2012, regular meeting of City Council. Roll call, please.
Mr. Haney?
Here.
Mr. Wells?
Here.
Mr. Stecker?
Here.
Mr. Wallace?
Here.
Mr. Mead?
Here.
Mr. Stevenower?
Here.
Mr. McKay?
Here. I would encourage everybody in the chamber at this time to turn your phones to vibrate, please. And then if you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll get right into it tonight. It's good to see a healthy crowd out there. We welcome you all to City Council. First tonight on the President portion of the agenda are the meeting minutes, the approval of the meeting minutes for the April 26th special meeting of council. What's your pleasure?
I move that they be accepted as presented.
Second.
I have a first by Councilman Wells, second by Councilman Stuckert. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. They are accepted as presented. Second item tonight is the approval of the meeting minutes of the May 3rd, 2012 regular meeting. What's your pleasure?
I move that they be accepted as presented.
I'll second again.
First by Councilman Wells, second by Councilman Stuckert. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. They are accepted. And that will complete my portion of the agenda, Mr. Mayor.
I have the honor of presenting a proclamation tonight. Are there representatives from the, This is for the American Cancer Society and specifically for the Relay for Life. And Relay for Life, I don't know how many of you have been out to a relay event in the past. How many years have we been doing this now?
Our 16th year.
16th year we've been doing this. And I've had the pleasure several times to be the host MC for the Relay for Life event. I had the privilege of addressing the folks as a cancer survivor myself. I've had the ultimate pleasure of walking the survivor's lap with my mother. So it is a very important thing that these folks are doing. It's raising money. It's the signature event for the American Cancer Society, raising money for them. And as I told people several years ago when I emceed and hosted it, somewhere there is in development a petri dish or a test tube in which the cure for cancer will be found. That petri dish, that test tube probably cost $1.50, $2. We need to make sure that that's paid for. We need to make sure that that's done. And my hat goes off to the American Cancer Society for all the work that they've done. And in recognition of that, I have a proclamation. Whereas cancer is a group of diseases characterized by uncontrolled growth and spread of abnormal cells, which, if not controlled, can result in death. And whereas the National Cancer Institute estimated that 569,490 deaths were expected to occur in 2010 in the United States. And whereas the American Cancer Society estimated that nearly 65,000 new cases of cancer would be diagnosed in 2010 in the state of Ohio, it is estimated that 1 in 3 people will be diagnosed with cancer in their lifetime. And whereas the American Cancer Society is a voluntary community-based health organization in the state of Ohio, dedicated to eliminating cancer as a major health problem. And whereas the Paint the Town Purple campaign is an endeavor to heighten the awareness of our citizens to the importance of joining the American Cancer Society as they strive to promote awareness about cancer at the annual Relay for Life of Clinton County, Ohio. And whereas the American Cancer Society recognizes that cancer does not discriminate and that it knows no boundaries. And whereas the Relay for Life represents an opportunity to celebrate the lives of those who have battled cancer, to remember loved ones lost to the disease, and to fight back. The American Cancer Society believes that Relay for Life is a moving celebration of cancer survivorship and all our citizens joining together to help find a cure. Now, therefore, I, Randy Riley, Mayor of the City of Wilmington, do hereby proclaim the 21st of May as Paint the Town Purple Day, and urge all citizens to join the opportunity to show our friends, families, and loved ones who are battling this illness that we share a common concern to eliminate cancer in our lifetime. In witness thereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause this seal to be affixed. And I cannot tell you how much I appreciate what you do, because you've both been part of this for a long time. And besides giving you the proclamation, I want to tell you, God bless you for what you're doing. I appreciate it. You have a few words? Valerie may have been fitting.
We would just like on next week for you guys to just wear purple on the 21st and just to come out on June 2nd and 3rd and support us, because this is a lifelong battle that we have all had to face, and we want to someday be able to find a cure and put an end to this nasty disease.
Thank you, Valerie. I have one other item. A few weeks ago, we were talking about establishing committees to look at the further financial health of Wilmington, looking at long-term and short-term goals, talking about, whether we're going to sell assets, levies, taxes. And it came to me that we needed to have someone who did not necessarily have a big dog in the fight, someone who could, in an objective way, not as an elected official, but representing the citizens, look at some of our needs. In discussing this, I met with Dr. Stephen Stovall, who is a PhD professor out of Wilmington College. And Professor Stovall has agreed with Dr. Angela Mitchell, another PhD professor at Wilmington College, to be facilitators of a blue ribbon panel to assess and advise the mayor and city council on city budget issues. The panel that I have spoken to, and they have all very enthusiastically agreed to participate on this panel, are ladies and gentlemen that have been elected to city council, elected positions many times in the past. In fact, they total 182 years of service to the city of Wilmington. These are people that can hit the ground running. They know what fund accounting is all about. They know about the ebb and flow of money in the city. And they have all enthusiastically agreed to be part of this, as well as Brian Scheidecker, our Director of Law, for assistance and advice on any of the legal issues that may come to them. But the panelists are, and this is in alphabetical order, Nick Babb, who served 22 years with city as auditor, councilman, and also safety director for the city. Fred Ertl, former council president, who served 8 years with the city. Nick Evelyn, mayor, who served 16 years with the city. David Hockaday, a very long-time councilman, who served 27 years with the city. The only elected official that I have asked to serve is David Hollingsworth, our current auditor, who's been with the city for 24 years. And that is because of his expertise in the finances and the flow of cash. I've also gotten with Robert Holmes, Bob Holmes, former safety and service director, was with the city for 22 years. Sandy Mongold, who was a longtime councilwoman, 21 years with the city, and also chaired finance for a long time of that. David Resk, who served the longest, he served 30 years with the city of Wilmington as safety director, president of council, and mayor. And also Kevin Snarr, former councilman and president of council. Kevin has served 12 years. The deliverables that I have asked them to consider is that following a review of the current city financial status, make recommendations to the mayor and the city council on the most appropriate plan of action to assure the city's near-term and long-term financial health. The target date for presentation of their report will be July 15th, 2012. So it's not a long-term commitment. And Dr. Stovall is with us today, and Steve, I very much appreciate your willingness to participate in this process. I look forward to hearing from you and Dr. Mitchell on the outcome of the discussions with the panel. So they will convene, well, basically as soon as Dr. Stovall convenes the meeting. He will be the facilitator and will be bringing this panel together, and will be conducting the meetings. So that will be up to Dr. Stovall as to when they will first convene. But we do expect a report sometime midsummer, July 15th or thereabouts, depending on their meeting schedule. So I thank you for that. And if anyone has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
I applaud you, Mr. Mayor, for assembling that committee. I'm very familiar with Dr. Stovall and his work, and I know you're going to get a good product. Thank you for taking that forward step for this city.
I have nothing else.
All right, we'll get into committee reports at this point. Asset acquisition and use.
No report this evening, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Auditor.
I don't have anything. I do have reports up through the end of April that I mentioned the last council meeting. If anyone on the council would like a copy, I think I've got, or anybody, for as many copies as I have, I think I've got 18 made. But we can make others if there are more people that want them. Just the state of the general fund goes back all the way to 2006 up through April 30th of the current year. That's all I have.
Thank you. Finance Committee.
Mr. President, we have one ordinance this evening, 3 readings on an ordinance making supplemental appropriations. And what this is using money from the sewer fund, which is an enterprise fund, to pay partially for a management plan for the flood control in case anything happens to our flood control system in Wilmington. That is the various fissure control system, the dams and the arteries that have been put in to move the water away from the residential to somewhere else. So I'm going to be asking for 3 readings, and I will ask at this time for the first reading.
Second. Would you like to put that in form of a motion?
Move for the first reading.
Second. We have a first by Councilman Meade, second by Councilman Yaney. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
And ordinance making supplemental appropriations.
I move to suspend the rules and regulations and give this ordinance second and third readings in title only.
Second. First by Councilman Meade, second by Councilman Yaney. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Yaney?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Stucker?
Yes.
Mr. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Meade?
Yes.
Mr. Siebenthaler?
Yes.
Mr. McKay?
Yes.
And ordinance making supplemental appropriations.
Move for passage.
Second.
First by Councilman Meade, second by Councilman McKay. For passage, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Stucker?
Yes.
Mr. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Meade?
Yes.
Mr. Siebenthaler?
Yes.
Mr. McKay?
Yes.
Mr. Yaney?
Yes.
Motion passed as read.
That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Bob. Water Committee.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Streets Committee.
Yes, Mr. President, we have a couple of updates on items. When we last met with the Streets Committee, we had agreed to move one item forward, and that's the abandonment of an alley that was part of Fulton Street at one time around the Walnut Street area. And that's going to be going for the Planning Commission next Wednesday. Tuesday, excuse me.
7 o'clock.
Thank you. So they will be considering that. And then a second item we were discussing was limiting parking on Gallup Street. And there were some issues that were brought forward when we had public discussion at our last council meeting. I had asked the law director to look into one item that a resident brought up, and it looks like that's going to work out for us. So we will be needing another Streets Committee meeting to bring that forward to next council. That's all I have.
Thank you. Solid Waste Recycling.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Wastewater Sewer Committee.
Mr. President, no report.
Thank you. Judiciary Committee.
Mr. President, we have a couple of items on judiciary. The first item I would like to do a little explaining about, we did the first reading at last council on an amendment to one of the chapters in our signage ordinances. And we're prepared tonight to move for the second, third readings on that ordinance. However, we did get some correspondence from some of our zoning officials indicating that they had some language concerns and some other concerns. And of course, we have a number of people who have been working to bring these ordinances up to date, not the least of which is Chris Schock and Steve Brown. And so we were able to connect all these people into the same loop, and they did agree that some of this language needed to be changed. So I'm going to go ahead with and move for a second reading, but I would like this first one to die for lack of second, if we would do that, so we can take it back to committee and officially change the language and bring it back to council at the next council. So I will move second and third reading on an ordinance amending chapter 1167.04 to the codified ordinances of the city of Wilmington, wall and projecting signs.
He was asking for the second and third reading waiver instead of the ordinance itself.
Send the rule.
No, he's going to move for the second and third reading.
I think he said second and third, that's what I can change that. Move from the second reading. Let's try to read it again.
No, that's fine. And is there a second? Seeing no second, the motion dies for lack of a second. So that is removed from the agenda.
I would say postpone indefinitely. And he's on the first read on a new one at the next council meeting.
Very good.
All right, our second item has to do with a CDBG grant that we had a presentation from Whitaker Wright on this, and we're ready to move for a first reading on a resolution authorizing the submittal of an application for the fiscal year 2012 Small Cities Community Development Block Grant formula, the formula program, and declaring an emergency.
Second. First by Councilman Stucker, second by Councilman Seaman on discussion. Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
A resolution authorizing the submittal of an application for the fiscal year 2012 Small City Community Development Block Grant CDBG formula program and declaring emergency.
Would you like that on the next agenda?
We will be bringing that up on the next council also.
Very good. Anything else?
Mr. President, I have nothing else.
Thank you. Safety Committee.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Downtown Revitalization Committee.
Yes, Mr. President, I don't need legislation, but just want to point out that the progress on the facades of our buildings that are in the lower half of this block on the east side are just coming out wonderfully, and I think we should all be proud of some of the things we've accomplished with our CDBG money in that facade restoration. Secondly, this weekend, actually Saturday, there's a really neat event downtown called Artsy Spaces in Lofty Places. And what that really means is Saturday afternoon, folks have purchased tickets, of which some are still available.
Actually, they're now sold out.
Completely for the
Yes.
tour only?
I don't know, they told me.
They're not
exactly.
sold out for the tour only.
Oh, just for the dinner?
Is that correct?
There are still tour-only tickets,
Yeah.
really, that are available at South Street Gallery for $10.
And what this is you're going to get to tour, I think it's 11
Correct.
upper stories. I have a ticket right here. Of several buildings downtown, many of which I haven't even been in, and it's just going to be a really neat way to get to see some of these lofts, some of which have been restored, and some of which have not and are available for sale. So, once again, you can still purchase tickets for the tour only at the art gallery, John Schoon's Art Gallery, just down the alley. And several people are going to enjoy the tour and a dinner at the General Dinner that evening. So,
What's the time?
time is 3 to 6. Yeah. So, just another great event in our wonderful downtown. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Excellent. Parks and Recreation Committee.
While we have no legislation tonight, I do want to give an update from the parks. This weekend we will have 30-plus teams from the Ohio Fast Pitch Spring Blast Tournament at JW Denver Williams Park. We expect approximately 1,000 participants or spectators for this particular event. Wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of the event. As you run into the athletes around town, please welcome them to our community and thank them for coming. Each time we have a sizable event like this, we do plan on trying to communicate so that the businesses, the restaurants, and the community is aware of what's going on. Also like to give out a special thanks to Quality, the Hampton Inn, Holiday Inn Express, and Kroger for being extremely helpful in getting some of these events nicely taken care of and really reaching out to the participants. Also, if you haven't been out to the park or onto the trails recently, since our last council meeting, and for council here, I have some photos. The parks did complete the new ramp onto the trails off of Nelson, so you do not have to cross Nelson. Our service director talked about that at the last meeting. Beautiful entrance, lots of parking available. Also, they, if you've noticed, they've taken down a large part of the fencing along Rombach Avenue, which really kind of opened up the park and really made it look beautiful. The fencing that's left along Rombach is mainly there for safety purposes with the lacrosse teams and the soccer that goes on, again, to keep balls out of the roadway. And then my favorite is the removal of the fence around the memorial area. This is an area that is a great tribute, and if you've never had a chance to actually get close and take a good look at it, it really is a beautiful area. But the fence has been removed, it's now accessible, it's been cleaned up, and really is a nice addition to the park. So I applaud the park on their quick actions and their moving ahead. The park did ask me, they are very, very grateful for the number of volunteers they've been getting. This coming Sunday at 1 o'clock, they will be spreading mulch out at the, I guess what I call the imagination station, or the wooden playground, and could use many volunteers to help spread that mulch. Also, they're, for the memorial area, they are looking for a business or a person that might be willing to donate a nice picnic table for that area. So that is it for the parks. Thank you.
If I may second the sentiments expressed by Councilman Yaney, I've been, my memories of General Denver Park go all the way back to the late 1940s, a very small child. It's always been one of those places that when you're around the bend and you see the park, it's just something happens inside of you. You're so glad to see it. And I've never been a time when I wasn't proud of that park or glad to see it. But I have to tell you that within the last few days and weeks, when you pass that curve and go around there, it's got a special brightness to it. And I certainly want to add my voice to congratulate Lori Williams and the park board for the work that they're doing out there. You know, they're actually making a huge contribution to our financial problems in the city by not taking money out of the general fund and working off their levy money. And I just think they're doing a great job. And I too would like to urge the citizens to be ready to respond and go out there and have some fun, work around, and make that just a spectacular place that it's always been. Just make it shine up and look really great. It looks wonderful now, and I'm hopeful that we can maintain that, and I'm confident we can. So I just want to throw that in.
Thank you, Councilman Stucker. I would also note that I'm happy to see the connection to the walking trail and the old tech shop facility. The safety that we have provided our citizens with not having to cross Nelson Avenue is critical. So I think it's excellent work. Mr. Service Director.
Just want to talk a little bit about demolition of homes. We have one big one that we got on our list right now that sits over here on Locust Street, and we condemned that a couple of years ago, and we've got that funded through a CDBG Plan Year 11. We were going to have to fight that guy. I met that guy last week, and we talked, and so he's volunteered to let us tear that down now. So it's going to make it a lot easier. As we talked, he had two more that he wants us to tear down also. But that's kind of a segue into another meeting I went to at the commissioner's office. And this is kind of like the neighborhood stabilization program, but this program is a little different. And I think it's kind of being sponsored by Fight the Wine. And I think it's penalty money from these banks that has to do with foreclosures. And so there's millions of dollars involved in this. And they split the money into all the different 88 counties, and it was based on the number of foreclosures in those counties. Clinton County share is $288,000. But you take somebody like Cuyahoga County, their share was $11 million. I think Hampton County was around $12 million. So, I mean, you know, it's tough all over the state. Dayton, Montgomery County, they were $9 or $10 million also. But, you know, as we talked to the commissioners, you know, $288,000 is not a lot of money. We figure it's probably gonna cost about $8,000 to do a house. Because we do have to do asbestos testing and some environmental stuff that goes with it. But we're gonna create a list, and I think we're probably gonna try to go to volunteer housing first, rather than try to go with court battles. But I know we've got probably 8 or 9 houses still that we need to tear down right now in Wilmington, and so we're gonna be working diligently on that. As a second note, I attended Ohio Public Works yesterday and last night, and it's a new budget year, and we just opened up the projects, and I don't see how we can do anything in the streets. We don't have the money to match any project, but you know, there's a few things we need to do with the water plant and the new filter system, and I think that we really need to talk about that, maybe possibly move forward, maybe apply for one of the grants there. That deadline, well, we need to have those applications in August, so probably need to talk about that, Mike. That's all.
Larry?
Yeah?
If I may, the guy that has his house, is he doesn't have any money?
No. In fact, I hate to talk about a lot of them, but.
No, not just him, but you know what I'm getting at is, are we gonna get our money back?
No.
Is he gonna own the land that's under that demolition?
Sort of. He financed 3 houses, and he has a debt of $150,000. We're gonna tear all his houses down, and he still has a debt of $150,000 that he has to pay. He's not relieved of that from the bank. The bank doesn't want the property though, and they said tear them down, they don't want the liability either, but.
We should take the land, should we not?
Well, yeah, I know yesterday when I met with the commissioners, they were talking about it, and maybe if you had to go through and enforce it all, but if you had a volunteer, you probably wouldn't go back for that, try to get that money back. I mean, how bad do you want to kick the guy?
Not bad at all, but I mean, when you do things for if people have money, or if he's paying his taxes, or he's bound to pay taxes, that can be added to his tax bill, can it not? So that eventually we can get something out of it. Force him into bankruptcy.
That's fine, yeah, I mean.
Not that I'm not anti this guy, it's just the principle of.
I mean, he was an investor, he tried to do it right, he worked at DHL, DHL moved, he lost a job. He had no money to continue on with his projects, and he told me he's not having money.
Let me put it a different way then. Say he had money, he was well-to-do. What would that process be? You would order him to tear it down himself?
And he'd probably do it himself, yeah.
We might also mention, we've gotten several calls in the last couple of weeks specifically about yards that have not been mowed at all. And of course, this has been anybody that owns a lawnmower knows this is a horrible season for mowing lawns. And we are in the process now of trying to get caught up. It's a long process to get through, but you really don't want the city of Wilmington to mow your lawn.
We're not real good at it. We are expensive, and
we do a bad job at a very high price.
But I mean, there's a process you do, and there's public notice, and then there's you have to stake it, put a sign out 5 days later. I know we sent a list out to the service garage the other day, had 12 properties on it, and they started mowing on them. So there's one on Romback Avenue, and it's there every year. I mean, for years and years, it grows up. I don't know why or who owned that house and why it's there, but it ought to be one of those we tear down.
Larry, on the mowing note, had received a citizen concern on a property out at the end of Cross Creek, and it's a W&K development. But the issue is that apparently it was not mowed last year, it's not been mowed this year, and there are a number of reptiles that are now showing up along Nut Avenue. So if I'm not mistaken, didn't W&K file for?
Well, part of it. Wyman still owns it.
Okay.
The W does.
Okay, I'm not sure if we could.
Dwayne, you might have, we'll have.
I stopped out and took a look, and you're talking foot and a half.
We had the same problem in Denver, Glen Country Oaks, and they didn't mow last year. we had some problems with, but we got a call from the bank this year. We sent them a letter and said, we're gonna start mowing. And then they contacted us, said they hired somebody to mow, so probably, they don't know about it. They probably don't even know about that property, they'll probably put that on the list of mowers because they volunteered and they hired me, they haven't started mowing, so.
Okay. I might not be able to-
I'll check it. If it's unknown, I'll be able to find it. It's not all right.
Well,
No, it's at the end of Cross Creek.
It's that other half of Cross Creek they didn't develop.
And to Larry's response, there is a number of places, I mean, it's an all-day job just trying to track down some of these people. I mean, we had a gentleman who came to council, 2 council sessions ago, complaining about the junk cars on Southridge Avenue. And I mean, I physically had to drive to the person's house over the first date and beat on the door and physically serve him because he wouldn't sign for a signed receipt. So when I had a meeting that direction, I made a point to go out of my way. So you're tracking these people down and getting their notes and so forth. It's just one person's job, and we're just trying to get all this stuff done. But we're working through it, and we're trying to get it tied up and stay on top of them. So.
And I think you had junkyards over there, or junk cars too, didn't you?
At his place, yeah. So when I went over there, it was the same thing over there. So I said, hey, you might as well clean this one up too. So, for what it's worth.
All right. Thank you, Larry. I haven't seen our safety director. Is he?
He's on vacation.
Okay, all right.
So I would say no report.
Very good. Before you have the hotel lodging tax report and the auditor treasurer's April 2012 reports. What's your pleasure?
I move that they be accepted as presented.
First by Councilman Wells, second by Councilman Meade. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Reports are accepted as presented. All right, at this point, we've reached the open to the public portion of our meeting and seen a large crowd tonight. We want to make sure that everybody has a chance to speak. At this point, we will open it up to any members of council or members of the public that would like to speak before council. And the rules would be that you would come up to the podium, you would state your name and address for the record. We do have on the books a time limit. I am not a fan of enforcing the time limit, but I also don't want to see someone in this audience that is here to speak have to wait till midnight to try and get their turn. And for that reason, I would ask for a show of hands how many people think they may want to speak, so we know whether or not to try and monitor the time. If we do not have that many, I have no problem not implementing any kind of time requirement. It looks like we have 4 people. Okay. And that's the case. At this point, I will open it up. I would offer 2 things to start the session. One, I want to thank publicly the law director for his work on closing down the illegal junkyard out on Columbus. I think that was excellent work. And I also want to say welcome to our new police chief, Dwayne Wayne. We are very excited to have great leadership at the helm of the police department, and it's great to have you here, Dwayne. Sure. We'll start down there. Councilman McKay.
I never spoken from over here.
You have my back there. Yeah. Come downstairs, right?
President, mayor, members of council, citizens, and everybody at home that might be watching this.
Could you speak up? You're a little soft spoken.
Thank you.
Microphone.
After last council meeting, actually our budget session, I was frustrated, and I have an idea that most of you folks are here as a result of some of the things that happened at that session. I wrote a speech. I tore it up. I rewrote it, and I tore that one up too. And then I wrote this one, and I'm not going to deliver it all, but because there are some things that are contentious, and what I really want to say to my fellow members of council and to our citizens, we need not be contentious I think our citizens are here because they have a concern that we may not be getting our work done the way we should. And we need to figure out a way for all of us to work together. I think our mayor made a good opening tonight with the committee. What I was concerned about last week had to do with committee assignments. That's a small thing in the big scheme of things. But I was told by someone that was just politics. And I am going to do just an excerpt from my speech, but y'all may recall that I delivered a speech prior to being elected last year. And a big part of that speech was, I hate politics. And you may remember that. Well, I continue to hate politics, but I love Wilmington, and I'll continue to serve its citizens to the best of my ability on this council. I think the type of contentiousness that we've been exposed to sends a really bad message to our citizens that voted for us, and even more importantly, those that might seek to relocate their businesses here. That we only care about making a point or winning a debate, which is just politics, rather than trying to work together to make this a better city for all. A city that is working together to achieve its goals. Our citizens deserve better. If you agree with me, it's my hope that the citizens of Wilmington would contact the councilmen that they voted for and make sure that they understand your concern that this council needs to forget politics and move forward in a positive direction to solve our current fiscal problems and help to save the Wilmington that we all know and love. Thank you.
I'll save you the time by not walking all the way around. I'm usually a pretty loud person, so if you can't hear me, please don't be shy about throwing something at me. It's been a long week, and I have a lot of people to thank for helping me bring my blood pressure in line. I thank Mr. McKay for his comments and believe that he is right on target with it. My concern, being a councilman, my opinion is that as an elected official, our absolute #1 responsibility, more than anything else, is to bring jobs to this community and to do whatever we have to do that. Yes, we have a budgetary issue, and we can debate all night long on what the proper method is to fix that. Can we find $1.3 million in our budget? Possibly. May we have to go out and look at a tax? God forbid. But possibly. Do we have to look at the possibility of selling grandma's necklace, as Mr. Riley, our mayor, had explained to me at one point in his description of the landfill? When you're sitting at home and you're comparing your home budget and you're going, what's the difference between a home budget and a city budget? It's complex, much more complex without a doubt, but there really isn't. You have to do what you have to do for the family. And this community, more than anything, is a family. I moved here from Michigan originally. I'm not born here in Wilmington, but I feel like I might as well have been. So last week I found myself extremely disheartened that moves that may or may not have been appropriate were done without discussion with those that were affected. That's what I was upset with. The councilmen up here, all 7, I have no doubt that they will believe this just as much as I will to solve the differences and the problems that this community faces. I believe that wholeheartedly. We may have different opinions on how to do that, which is perfectly acceptable and thankfully is needed, because none of us have the answer to go forward. We have to be able to work together. But I believe that during what was supposed to be a work session, in which no legislation was supposed to have been moved forward, action was taken to change the committees without discussion with those that were affected, without the, I feel, the proper respect owed to the length of service that was given to this council, to this community. I'm not looking to start a war. That's not good for our city. It's not good for attracting new jobs. The mayor and I are meeting with a potential new company next week. We don't need this splashed across the headlines. You know, Wilmington City Council squabbles. Wilmington City Council at war. It's not good for our community. Our #1 job, more than anything, is to get jobs in the city. It's that simple. Thank
We had 2 people in the audience that I saw. Ms. Lane, would you like to come up? Ladies first.
I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry, perhaps I'm a little bit soft-spoken.
Hi, my name is Molly DeLay, 81 West Main Street, Wilmington, and I own the General Denver. I was really upset when I read that article. I really was. I can't believe it, and I don't want to believe it. Many of you gentlemen ran on campaigns of open transparency, and what it appears to have happened is somewhere along the line, somebody got some ideas and didn't have the common decency, courtesy, respect to speak to the people involved. This appears to be the closed politics behind the door thing that we all don't like. And shame on you for doing it. I respect, admire Mr. McKay and Mr. Yannick to absolutely no end. As a matter of fact, Mr. McKay, one of the reasons why I'm in town, have a business for over 8 years, is because of Mark McKay, who at all times, whether he's in Wilmington or Dayton, Ohio in a hospital, is your #1 advocate. And I hope you remember that. And when nobody else wants to do anything around town because you have to spend all your own time and it's tough to volunteer and everyone says it can't be done, the eternal optimist, and I can do it and I will go to all lengths to get this done, is Mr. Yank. These gentlemen deserve our respect. And all citizens of Wilmington deserve your respect. That is what I don't like. I don't mind what you deem the right thing to do, and I'm not here to question what you think is right. But to behave as children, to not act with dignity, is reprehensible and unbecoming of a leader, and is not a leader. If you have something to say, I suggest you speak to the people involved first. And if your mother didn't teach that to you, I'm here to teach it to you. If you have a problem with someone, let's speak to them directly. And then it's fine to do what you need to do. Mr. McKay, again, you have shown me what I should be doing. And I often think, what would Mark do? Mark would say something wonderful and kind and the right thing, which is we have to stop behaving like children and all get along. Although I'm sure that he has some very strong feelings about the way he was treated. The citizens of Wilmington are exceedingly proud of you, Mr. McKay. And Mr. Yanig, we're exceedingly proud of you, and I came to tell you so. And we are behind you every step of the way. Thank you.
Paul, would you?
No, I guess I will.
These are tough acts to follow.
Pardon me?
These are tough acts to follow.
Yeah, well, this is not an act. The last meeting, I discussed the solid waste fee structure. How it didn't match, the reality didn't match the ordinance. So I have a rhetorical question I've learned from the law shows that I watch on TV. You don't ask the question unless you know the answer in advance. The question is, does anybody in the room know if we're charging city residents who tip at the landfill, 11 cents the 80 yard, county residents, $17.50 a yard, compacted material, city residents, $16.83, and county residents and businesses, $27.69. Those are the ordained fees that we should be charged for landfill. The information I've had, even recent information, indicates that those aren't being met. Just remind council of that we're not doing that. If you want to change the fees to make something better, that's okay. But to just arbitrarily and illegally change the fees because of your some personal or some opinion isn't the way you're supposed to run a city or a government at all. The law is there, people follow it or change it, but don't ignore it. Those that do ignore it could be considered in violation of the ordinance. Well, they are, I would consider them in violation of the ordinance. So all I can do is talk about it. You guys have to do the action. Thanks.
Another question for you?
Yes.
Are these fees monthly or?
Per yard. This is people that go to the landfill and dump a truck or whatever.
So they're charged at the time of dumping?
Right.
Paul, I would, in respect of your question, I would offer to you that council's responsibility is to set the codified ordinances by which the city is to operate. Day-to-day operational control is completely the mayor's purview. It is the executive branch that operates the city.
That's a given.
To the council's understanding, those are the legal rates, and those are the rates that are being charged. The mayor and I have spoken on this issue.
The rates that I just stated?
Yes.
It is my understanding
Well,
that those rates are being charged. Council has inquired through the administration, which is the...
I have invoices from this month that say we're charging $16.50, for example.
I understand.
So-
All I'm letting you know is that your concerns have been heard, discussions have been held with the administration, and the appropriate connection between council's legislative arm and the mayor's day-to-day operational administration has been
I will
used to
counter that.
understand.
This has been, this is not a hurry-up thing. I'm not rushing to judgment. This has been a 6-month or 7-month project now. It started out behind, did not make it public and not rant and rave, but that wasn't complied with, and this has crossed over into the new administration. And I keep hearing whether right rates are charged or they're not charged, and nobody knows. I do know that the right rates are not being charged, at least up to this month. So.
I will share with you that that concern has been shared by myself, Councilman Wells, Solid Waste.
Well, this wasn't
Advisory
directed at
Committee.
you or council.
And to answer your question and concern, part of the investigation of the scale at the landfill is associated with trying to make sure that the proper amount of trash is charged the proper amount of fee.
That's a separate issue, sir. The issue I'm talking about is compliance with law, the rule of law in the city. That's what I'm speaking of. There's a whole kind of, I'm not saying fees are right or wrong, but the fees are written by, or they're part of law.
They are.
And if they're not enforced, then somebody is doing what with the law?
I have requested the law director to provide the opinion to make sure that the service director and the mayor understood the responsibility under the law to charge the appropriate fees at the landfill and to inform the landfill superintendent to do so. We got that opinion, we shared it with the administration, and the administration has indicated it's being done. And at this point, we have addressed that very issue from a council standpoint.
Yes, I have discussed also with the, as you well know, law director, considering a writ, a mandamus, to bring this into compliance. It's a last resort thing nobody wants to do. To me, it's simply charge the rates they are now, approach council, say here's what they should be after your scale and all that. In the interim, follow the law.
It's my understanding that's what's being done. Mr. Service Director?
I'd just like to respond to a couple of his comments. I mean, I've been here 30 years, and I don't know how long I've dealt with Paul Hunter, but for some reason, he always gets half the story, and he only expresses half.
Don't start this character
Hey,
stuff.
hey, let me talk, okay? Well, go ahead and leave.
Gentlemen.
But last fall, we met when we discovered that all the rates weren't being charged properly, out-of-town rates were being charged incorrectly, and we called a meeting. And we had Paul Hunter there, and we had Don Wells, chairman of the sanitation committee there, we had Mayor Risk, we had Don Mayor and me, and we discussed it, and we said, well, the rates aren't right. And the ordinance itself is not easy to read and figure out. We all know that. But we said, the rates will be charged properly. So I sent out a letter to all the haulers, and we said, we want to give them time because a lot of the big haulers have contracts with a lot of these companies. We said effective January 1, the rate will be charged properly. Now, as the letters went out and Donnie started getting correspondence back from the haulers, a lot of people decided they weren't going to pay the rate and they were going elsewhere. To the tune of about $20,000 a month in revenue, $250,000 a year. As soon as Randy come on, I greeted him and I said, Randy, we got a problem. And we need to get this waste sanitation committee back together again and talk about this. And I think late January, we all got together again. Paul Hunter was there again. We're not sneaking around and doing this. Paul was there, Scott was there, Don was there, just about everybody was there. And we discussed the discrepancies in the rates, and we said, hey, we're losing a lot of haulers. And when we were all right there that night, we agreed, and the committee voted, told me to go ahead and write a letter to the haulers, and said we're going to have a moratorium for 6 months on this current rate. Remember?
If it was legal.
No, there was no if, no legal
Yes,
about
there
it.
was.
No, we were there, and that's what you voted and said do it.
If it was legal.
So I write a letter.
There was no.
And you guys said, that'll give us time to figure out what we can do and look at scales and all that. And here we are at the end of May, we haven't done anything on those rates. I've bid out a set of scales. But right after I did that, then Scott notified the law director and said I'm breaking the law after you told me to do it. Now that's what burns my butt. I just don't, why didn't you call me, Scott, instead of going back to the law director and questioning my move?
About what?
Well, saying I'm doing something illegal.
What are you talking about?
And you really didn't get an opinion from him. You said, I got an opinion, he didn't give you an opinion.
About what?
About whether those rates were right or wrong, whether I could change them.
Mr. Law Director, did you provide an opinion, a written opinion?
In April. I've got it on my desk.
That's correct. What we informed you of was
Not
after we
January.
left the meeting January 25th, we had indicated that it was the mayor's administrative right to control what the service director and the landfill superintendent did. If it was legal for you to adjust rates as you represented it to the committee, you felt it was, that it was up to the mayor. The committee indicated it did not wish to go forward with a 40% discount for commercial trash haulers because of the recent 21% increase that this city had placed on its citizens. And it was only after you refused to do what we had found out from the law director was supposed to be done, and you demanded a written opinion,
Well, yeah, because
that we got the written opinion.
No one
for
told
you
me
to
that. No one told me about this opinion. I know
We
you
did.
demanded, I know you demanded from the law director every opinion in writing, and why didn't I get a copy of it? See, you know, this is what goes on. I mean, Paul complains all the time, and he says we do this and do that. You know, I've been in the city hall for 7,000 days. And Paul Hunter has never once stepped in my office. He sneaks around and he writes notes and he gives them to the news journal, he passes them to council people, and he always wants to burn you in public. But he never wants to come to the office and talk about the problem. You know, I serve with Mayor Moyer on council. I serve with under 3 different mayors, 15 different councils. And this is the worst leadership that I've seen in all those years, Scott, out of a council president.
And I'm sorry that.
And it's so dysfunctional. You have got these people all upset.
Larry, let me understand. Did you indicate that Paul Hunter was in the meeting
Yes.
in December?
Yes.
But yet you've just represented that he has never stepped into office to talk about.
In my office. He was in the mayor's office.
If he comes into the office to talk with the administration.
No, he's never come to see me.
I understand. I will say for the record that I am and have been concerned that tens of thousands and potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in appropriate fees have not been collected from commercial trash haulers, to the detriment of the residents of this city. And for the record, I have requested the mayor to contact the state auditor's office multiple times to bring them in to review those records because of the concern. The written opinion was provided you,
In April.
and you refused to
No.
actually charge the codified rates until you got a written opinion
That's right.
from the law director that you had to follow. the
No,
law.
I'd already sent that letter down, Scott.
It's, the facts
You
is
know,
remain.
you say one thing and do another, and that's no good.
Folks can listen to the committee meeting where you clearly said, I haven't received a legal opinion telling me I have to do that.
That's right.
And that was when we made the
I
request
mean,
to
it
the
was
law
news to me.
director. We didn't think we would have to ask the administration to get a legal opinion that they had to follow the codified ordinance that is enforced right now. Passed legally by a council, on the books, requiring certain rates to be charged.
I have never been asked by the president of council to contact the state auditor for any type of opinion or review. You've never asked me.
That is incorrect.
That's
And I'm disappointed that that's
You mentioned it a few times. You talked about contacting them yourself, but you've never asked me to contact the
Directly
state
asked
auditors.
you. Directly asked you in our private meeting.
Never be.
I will share with the council chamber on the subject of committee assignments. One of the few things that the president of council is required to do is to name committee assignments. At the request, the proposal of Councilman Yaney, 3 new committees were recommended to address issues associated with the finances of the city. Upon reviewing that proposal and realizing the request's concerns and understanding the validity of it, that timing and understanding of the issue at hand, the potential of adding tax levies or an income tax increase required a great deal of information. We did create a new committee at the behest of that request. Now, upon creating that committee, I laid out a charter associated with the work that we need to do. In that day, that same day, as I wrote that charter and realized the amount of work, I realized that the work balance was going to be out of balance. I took a look at the committee assignments and rebalanced the committees. For anyone that would like to see what those balances are, they are up here, and I brought copies. I will tell you that prior to adding that committee, we had 4 councilmen who had 5 committees, and 3 councilmen who had 4 committees. We now have 7 councilmen that have 5 committees. That's the balance. We have no councilman who has more than 2 chairs. And that's part of the balance as well. I believe that I was elected to lead this council to be able to effectively execute the business of the city. And it is my thought that those committee balances are there, and it's the most effective way to serve the citizens. We'll also point out that I do not assign them without the approval of council. Those committees were voted on and passed by council, which is not legislation. It is simply council committee assignment. We've got a lot of work to do in the city. We have a major budget issue, and we have to solve those problems. I will tell you that it is difficult. When I look at tonight's proposal from the mayor on naming a blue ribbon panel, and know that no one on council was even consulted on this idea, I believe that the communication part of this process has to start with the leadership at the top. This council stands ready to discuss all of these items. It stands ready to hear what the mayor's plan is and to try and execute it to serve the citizens. I do not think that this committee is an appropriate committee to advise council. I believe that all of you right here in this room as citizens of the city are the ones who need to be contacting your legislators and letting them know exactly what they desire to be done. Coming here before council, as all of you did that spoke tonight, and I applaud that. I think that input is key and critical. I think that there are 7 elected representatives of the citizens of this city that have the responsibility to balance this budget, to live within our means. And I think that those 7 people have the responsibility to figure out how to do it. They asked for and received the vote of the public to serve in these positions. I believe that with this document, the mayor has named a fine committee of folks with a lot of experience, education, and ability. But I believe that this council has the responsibility to make the tough decisions, as does this mayor. And I think that's what we need to do. The work balance on those committees is designed to do that. And for any of you who really want to know what that balance is, it's here. And I thank you for the opportunity to let me know that.
Mr. President.
Yes, Councilman McCown.
Obviously, you didn't hear what I said when I spoke earlier, or you didn't take it to heart, because that's about the most contentious speech, which is typical. One paragraph that I didn't read was, the problem arises when the leader ceases to become a leader and forgets that he should remain as unbiased as possible in his leadership of the council. Our president has certain rights and rules that he must follow. I do not mean to imply that he's broken any of these rules or laws in his leadership role. He actually has been very aggressive and effective in his attempts to clarify certain rules of council. I believe, however, that our leader, in his passion to accomplish a goal, has broken an unwritten rule in his actions of Thursday last.
I've been kind of quiet. I was given the privilege of seeing that list of directives you've given for that committee that was assigned, and I find it to be a little bizarre, to be quite honest. The information that you've requested, I don't think this whole council would be, in the years they have left in their term, would be able to compile all that information. I just think people need to look at the letter, to look at the information you've requested to be compiled. That there's no way.
I will accept that that's your opinion. They seem like specific data points to me. The amount of money generated from a police levy that currently could exist, the amount of money generated from our existing
Well, I
income
think-
tax, the current value of property inside the city tax zone. I don't think those numbers are impossible to put together. And the understanding of that data as a baseline, and then a recommendation for the types of taxes we could put on and what they would generate. It didn't seem that impossible. It does seem like a lot of work, I agree, but that's the information that I think that this council and the citizens would need to have. If this council and administration want to go to the public and ask for more revenue, which is what I am hearing is a desire, potentially.
You'd better say potentially.
It's not a desire. We have a revenue problem is what I have consistently heard from some corners. And if we are going to go to the citizens and ask them for more revenue, when our town has been so devastated, I think that we need to be able to provide them an understanding of what revenue they're providing, where it goes, and what revenue we are asking for, and in what form, how it would be used. I do not think that that is unobtainable information, but I do believe that it does take an extended effort. That's why I documented what it was. And I will be happy to provide that to the mayor's office. And anyone in the public that would like to see the document is more than welcome to take a look at it. By the way, it was noted as a guideline of the work that seemed to need to happen. All of them addressed ideas brought up in the mayor's town hall meeting, covered by the mayor in this council. And to me, that was just simply getting the information that the council would need for any kind of decision like that, and the public would need for any kind of support of a decision like that. I'll provide the document to anybody that wants it.
I'm really saddened by your responses, Mr. President.
So noted, Councilman McKay.
I want to make a point. I hear a lot about how all this is because a president comes and does what the law, the Ohio Revised Code calls for him to do. But he didn't talk to everybody about it, right? Well, this right here, which is the proposal that he was handling, came at the end of a meeting that we had, and it called for 3 committees. And it called for Bob Mead to be on the police levy committee and head it up. It called for me, Lawrence Tucker, to be on the income tax committee. And it called for Mark McKay to be on the selling the landfill committee. I don't know about the other 2 guys, but nobody talked to me about this before it came. This happens, we operate under sunshine law so much in this council. We're so used to not being allowed to talk to one another all the time. I mean, this is not, what happened with the president is not that different than what happens all the time here. And I think that, people were getting much too excited over something. I'm not gonna sit here and let a young man be spoken of this way that I know to be differently. You people are reasonable people, but you need to back off and take a look here. What we have in this council right now is what we've always had. And prior to this last election, we had people that thought we should be tackling the $1.3 million deficits that we kept having, which we had 3 of them. And at that time, the numbers were 2 to 5. And at one point, the 2 brought in a document, an actual document that called for ideas on how to reduce this budget, live within our means. The headline the next day said they wanted to close the parks. They wanted to shut the cab company down. That's how they were treated. Now, they didn't go out and round up a bunch of people, and I don't know if social media was available there or not, but they didn't do that. They resumed their role, and they just kept saying the same thing. At that time, it was 5-2. And then later, I got appointed last July to fill an empty seat. And at that time, the ratio became 4-3. And as we moved towards this budget for 2012, there were 3 people that said, let's look at our revenues, our spending versus our revenue. We haven't had any meaningful analysis of the line items in the budget to say one way or the other what we could or couldn't do. So I propose that we do that, that the 7 of us come together and do that. That's what I propose. And to compromise, because we had to have a budget passed, I said, let's just appropriate 3 months' worth, and let's roll our sleeves up as an elected body and go to work on this. The response was 4-3, and we got voted down. Now, I didn't hear anybody saying this is divided government at that time.